Okay, Carl, we're back. We're going to talk about something that is really close to your professionalism and what you work on every day and what you do every day. And that's opportunities in critical infrastructure. Started to talk with some folks about their industries and what opportunities are out there. And this is one that we haven't talked about. And it's maybe even a little not well known because of the level of secrecy that's involved or the criticality of critical infrastructure and but first let's break down what that term means, critical infrastructure. I mean, coming from the Fed, I think I know what it means, but give us the private sector angle on critical infrastructure. What does that mean?
You bet. So back, previously the Department of Homeland Security, or I guess even before Homeland Security, I can't even remember I think it was Secret Service that used to run with this concept, because, Secret Service is still responsible for major events like
Yes.
Democratic Convention, Republican Convention, Super Bowl,
Super
all
Bowl.
those kind of things. So now, since the Secret Service has been absorbed by DHS, Department of Homeland Security, that's really within, many of those organizations within DHS, those different agencies or departments work on those kind of things, but still Secret Service definitely is involved with a lot more than just protective details. So financial crimes, they lead in some of the forensic computer work, as well as they had originally the PSAs, the physical,
Yeah,
what do they call them?
that's
Protective
right.
Services agents. They were, all from the Secret Service. So Secret Service had done a great job with critical infrastructure and really was at the forefront prior to Homeland Security. So I think the key term used to be CI and KA, critical infrastructure in key areas.
Yeah.
And there was like 13 and 5 or something like that, total of 18. But now what really, and I'm sure Homeland Security has a official name with it that, obviously I'm not going to Google it or anything, but, those that are in the Fed probably, they definitely know that. But really when, like someone like me thinks of critical infrastructure, we're thinking of things that keep, us being able to operate our lives. I mean, granted, we're on lockdown, 2.0 or whatever they call it, but normally, and even through this, a lot of those infrastructures are very important. So, pharmaceutical, transportation, rail, nuclear, electric, water, gas, trucking, all those kind of things that get the goods from point A to point B, as well as all the resources that we use on a daily basis. So, lights, gas. Water, all those kind of good stuff. So when we talk critical infrastructure, that's what we mean by that, like the critical stuff that you need to live as an American on a day-to-day basis.
Well, that's great to know, and it's really important. And so there's a security, and I would imagine an investigations component there.
100%.
So there are opportunities for folks who are transitioning from law enforcement, military, into critical infrastructure potentially. Let's talk about those a little bit. Can you kind of give us a framework of what kind of opportunities they could see in critical infrastructure?
Absolutely. So number one, if you're in traditional law enforcement at the federal, state or local level, there's opportunities. You said the government still owns a large piece of infrastructure. So there's like Tennessee Valley Authority, Bonneville Power Administration. The states own a lot of the waterways and aqueducts, and even like Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, San Francisco Water and Power. SMUD, Sacramento Municipal Utility District. I mean, I'm picking West Coast. Let's go East Coast. New York Power Authority. I mean, all those kind of. There's a lot of towns and cities that are operating as what we call municipalities, also co-ops, and some intergovernmental regions. Like San Francisco has their own water district that's huge. So there's investor-owned utilities, so private sector that are traded on the stock, and large energy companies like Exxon and American Electric Power. And there's also some very small towns like the town of Denton in Texas does their own. And then in your area, Salt River Project, which is a project in the Tempe Mesa area. And so that's a large regional consortium, so quasi-governmental. It's still, they get a lot of their power from their board, but it's regionalized, so it's a government. They have a tariff and all that good stuff. So there's a lot of investor-owned, privatized, if you would, as well as still a lot of government. So if you want to stick to the kind of that traditional law enforcement, many of those agencies have traditional law enforcement / security protective services departments that you could go and jump over to those, and still like TVA has 1811s as well as 1810s and some other not just kind of like their own FPS, Federal Protective Service. They have their own
doing traditional security duties and things like that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Protective details and some investigations too. They have law enforcement status. So that's one way to kind of make a little bit of a jump, right? 5-foot jump. But if you really want to get, both feet and jump off the ladder, you can get in the private sector. And again, there's big companies, small companies, mom and pops, et cetera, from a lot of different areas. And even now, retail, you could argue, is part of critical infrastructure because they contribute so much to the economy. And people like you and me that still have to travel and do things on a day-to-day basis. I miss the time where I can go have a beer and a burger, in an establishment, because I can't have that unless I take it back to my hotel room right now.
That's right.
So I would say those are critical infrastructure, but I don't. The government's probably not going to agree with me on that. But I know a lot of people would because they miss that. Going out, even Starbucks, you can't drink a coffee inside of Starbucks now. You have to go out to your car. So I know I, for one, miss that. I think a lot of us do. I know you do too. So that critical infrastructure is, I think, becoming more of a misnomer, especially in the pandemic. But really, when we talk about it, it's those things that are necessary to the commodities that those of us that enjoy living in America enjoy on a day-to-day basis. So water, gas, electricity, Amazon Prime coming to your door. I mean, those kind of things. Well, even though you can't order, you can get food brought to you.
And all of these businesses have some level of, I would imagine, business continuity planning.
They should.
Security operations centers, things like that. And how do law enforcement folks, how should they consider or craft their resume to be successful there?
So I know, and this was, you've talked about this before with Chuck and Carlos as well as Ray. So again, what people have to understand is it may be a mom and pop organization, but anything more than, probably 20, 30 employees, and even some of them now have automated services, are using an automated tracking system or an automated application system. And so a robot or some artificial intelligence, a computer learning, is looking at those resumes as an initial qualification. And if you don't hit those buzzwords, and basically if you don't read the position description and match up your experience with that position description, and I don't know what the algorithm is, but I would say, you've got to shoot for, if there's 10 different listings, you want to at least match 80%, because it's going to be looking for that cutoff. I don't know if it's 60, 70, 80, but obviously you want to be going the top 5%, because only those people are going to be looked at as a real interview. So once you make it past the computer, you get vetted out by an HR person to make sure the computer didn't make a mistake, and then only, say there's 100 resumes, maybe 5 get to the hiring manager to even do an initial look at. So if you're not in those 5, I think Carlos said a great point, right? Your job is get in the building. And what that means is your job is to get in front of that hiring manager and say, hey, yeah, I like Scott. I think let's give Scott a call, and get him on a voice call or a Zoom call and see what he's all about. If you're in that stack of automated reject pile and you get some, computer generated thank you, but no thank you, you haven't even made it in the door. And that's frankly, don't get frustrated if that happens. But what I would say is one of two things. Really read the position description and align your resume. And I understand you may have to do 20, 80, 100 versions of your resume, but do you want the job or not? Because frankly, if you don't do that with one resume, you're not going to break down doors anymore. And 2, develop your network, because a lot of these things are referrals. And there's guys that are out there, and guys and gals, ladies and gentlemen, that are on LinkedIn and do this. They're pushing out jobs all the time, and they're out there. And basically, if you partner with one of those folks, you're more likely to get those jobs pushed to your LinkedIn profile. And also, as you just mentioned, join an association, as a job board. The ACFE has a job board. SIA has a job board. So I think the more you're aware of the jobs, don't get frustrated. You get turned down a few times. We've all been there. But keep on striving for it and develop your network. And the key is do your resume and align it to that position description.
And I think, needless to say, the critical infrastructure industry is going to be hiring a lot in the near future, and keep an eye on that. Utilize yourself as a resource for knowledge to figure out if this is a good industry for you to be in, and expand your network like we were talking about earlier. Great conversation, Karl. I really appreciate it. It's great to hear about your industry and the changes that are coming, and that how we're developing as a nation to kind of get